You are listening to the Intimate Breath podcast, and this is Lore. Here we share personal stories and have open conversations about everything related to intimacy and sexuality. How can we invite more of our erotic power in all areas of our life and create more well-being? That's what this is about. Welcome. Today I'm here with Li Tadaa. She's a colleague and inspiration of mine. I let her introduce herself later in the beginning of this podcast. And we have some super interesting conversations about gender identity, gender fluidity, and sexual orientation. How do we create safe and inclusive spaces? And how do we live and work from pleasure? Have a great listen. Li, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to have you on this podcast and talk with you about a few things that I felt really sparked to ask you about. Do you first want to start introducing yourself, however it comes today, playful, serious, however?
Thank you for having me on your podcast. It feels like an honor. And I guess also I'm invited because we have a personal experience together, and you joined my retreat. And that particular retreat was focusing on exploring our inner gender fluidity using tools from movement, dance, theater, kink, and explore our sexuality. And I would say maybe Planet Me, this event is kind of, what would you call it? The epicentrum of things that I love to explore in one place. But otherwise, I call myself a lust and intimacy coach. And I support people to listen to their bodies and to find more pleasure in their bodies that is there accessible, but we're not used to being with it. Mm-hmm. And for many people, that might mean also to get in contact with the other emotions in the body that we haven't been wanting to deal with very either consciously or unconsciously. We are often a bit disconnected from our bodies and emotions from the past and attachment patterns and intergenerational, and we can go very far back. But there's a lot of history in the body. And then when we open our eyes to it, then we can understand much better how we function and see ourselves as perfect beings for those who we are and make better choices.
I love how you described all of that. And you already mentioned what I wanted to mention for sure. And that's the reason why I invited you here. It's your event, Planet Me. I know a lot of people in my network that have known your work for longer, and they're very excited about you. And a uniqueness about what you bring to the world, something that people keep on saying over and over, is how you blend worlds that often are separated from each other. Queer gender, queer communities, and however you would call the conventional communities, or tantra even. Tantra is often very male, female.
Sometimes it's a bit heteronormative depending on where you go, and there's an idea that it's divided men and women, but it's also changing a lot.
Yes, exactly. And then also with the Black community. So I've heard lots of positive things about you, but it's only recently that I joined your event, Planet Me. And it was such a rich experience for me and has also inspired the work I am bringing already a lot just by those 4 days of joining you. So that's also what I wanted to talk about. I'm curious if you want to say a bit more about this blending of worlds and how you became that bridge, where your passion comes from.
Yeah, I love the word bridge, and it has helped me to identify who I am and what I stand for, because I see myself as a bridge person. And I remember already before I came into pleasure and intimacy, I was living in Mozambique and I was dancing Lindy Hop, which was an African-American dance, and started to teach that in Mozambique. And there was this idea of there's something missing because we have this African-American dance, mainly danced by white people. And then we have these amazing dancers in Mozambique who with their roots and rhythm and connection with the earth and each other and the rhythm, they had something that I found that the dance was missing. And I didn't have what was missing. I wasn't the best Lindy Hop dancer in the world, and I'm not from Mozambique, but I can see that there's something here that needs to be connected. So at the time I was running or being in front of this Afro swing movement to bring the African roots back into the swing dancing and the Lindy Hop world. And I think that is the beginning of this constant journey of seeing that these people have this thing and those people have this thing, and they're not really communicating, and they need what they have. And how can I build that bridge in between? If you would see me now, you would see me building a lot of bridges with my bridges with my hands. And then I was running cultural projects between Mozambique and Sweden. And then there was like, okay, I want to bring this rich Mozambican culture to Sweden. But if they just walk in and teach the same way as they would teach at home, where people are very advanced and used to rhythm and easy to follow footwork and have a different connection, then the Swedish people can't follow, and they want to understand more like, no, you need to count, and I want to know left and right and left, and they want like systematically. Well, they just listen to the rhythm and just follow the flow. And so again, people function in different ways, but behind it, we are all the same. So when it comes to the queer community and the non-queer community, there's also this idea that it's like us and them. So it's like, oh, we are the Swedish people and they are the Mozambican people, and we are so different. Oh, here's the heteronormative people and here are the queer people. It's like we are different planets. Mm-hmm. And for me, Planet Me is an attempt to say like, no, we're not. Let's create a new planet where we all can fit. Mm-hmm. But you have to be open to want to be in the same planet as everyone else. Mm-hmm. And when coming back to heteronormative or queer, I actually have so many friends and a lot of older people who identify as straight and cis. But when they talk about themselves actually in quite a queer way, but they're not aware of it. Mm-hmm. So they might say that, well, I'm a woman and I'm married to a man, but I never had the experience of anything else. So who knows? And I happen to be born into this body. So I call myself a woman, but I don't really necessarily identify myself with that. Mm-hmm. Or I see myself as much more. And I've always been like more of a boyish girl when I grew up, or things like that. And if they were born today, or if they were young today, maybe they would have identified as non-binary. But there was no such language at the time. And I was talking to a sex therapist, and she has been working in the queer community for like 25, 30 years. And she said, like 20 years ago, you would have this huge community of dykes, of like masculine lesbian women. And it's a strong identity of being a masculine lesbian woman. Mm. While if you are a masculine person in a woman's body now and you're 15, then you're non-binary.
Yes.
So this identity of the masculine women is disappearing because we're choosing new boxes to put ourselves in. Mm. So this with the bridging is to give people an experience of what it is to be fluid in our bodies, and that then each person can choose what they want to call themselves or how they identify themselves, but to get to the experience that we're not that different. Mm-hmm. But depending on what community we're hanging out in and how we are being accepted outside, then we choose different language and we have opportunities to explore more of ourselves. Mm-hmm. I kissed my first girl when I was 24. Mm-hmm. So if I say that I had got into a heteronormative relationship when I was 23, and then maybe I got a kid, I would never have explored who I am today. because I would have locked myself with that. It's like, oh, this is who I am.
Yes.
And I think it also binds together with us being always in change as humans. It doesn't mean that I think one, like, oh, I'm not gay today and tomorrow, if you're open for it, you're going to be gay. But if you take your life on a long perspective from who you are when you are 20 until you are when you are 60 or 70, you're going to be so many different people.
Yeah.
And as soon as you put yourself in a box, you're going to limit our capacity for expansion, supposed to allow that fluidity, both when it comes to what we enjoy in life, what we find peace in, what kind of people we want to hang out with, who we are attracted to, and how we identify ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And in my personal experience, sometimes it's needed to, for me at least, to take on a box, to integrate that part of me, to feel more and more okay with those qualities inside of me. And then it can change again once that process has happened, and there are new things that I want to explore about myself or accept about myself.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. I think the boxes are super important. And when you're a younger person today and you feel outside of your community and not seen, and then you find another community who have, like, this is the queer community or this is that community, I think they're super important. Just to know that they are part of a process of the expansion that can change beyond that box, that it can change.
Yeah. So I have been struggling with my own events, wanting to be queer friendly, queer inviting, also with this idea of, like, for me, the gender, I don't really care how they would call me. I feel comfortable with all the qualities, and generally I feel woman, but I don't feel super attached to it like your friends, like you mentioned them. But I've noticed that I've been trying to create some kind of balance in the group so that, I didn't have to deal with some mainly male participants feeling uncomfortable with a lot of other male participants without, if they identify as heterosexual cis men. And mainly already before I went to Planet Me, but also mainly since I went to Planet Me and talked with some more people there also, I realized, like, that's not what I want to do. Like, I don't want to be the kind of facilitator who's worrying about the gender balance and then still trying to use inclusive words in my invitation, but in a way I'm still trying to control who's there and still putting those boxes there. And I want to be that kind of person who's just like, this is a group that came here, and I'm not creating a dating community here. I'm actually providing a space where we can explore intimacy and, with whoever is in front of us. And so my question to you is, how do you have tips for people that have a business, that create events, that have communities, that maybe don't have a lot of experience with being more inclusive and bridging? Like, what would be some simple tips?
To start with, it's not so simple.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
And I think it's about also accepting that there is no such space as all-inclusive, because the presence of one might be the unsafety of the other. And the more true we are to what people we are inviting, even if that excludes people, then the safer the space will be.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
A lot, yeah.
So it's, if you want heterosexual cis men and queer and trans people in the same space, probably automatically it's not going to be safe. With that said, it's not going to be safe unless they have agreed to be in that space together, and they are there because they want to be in such space.
Absolutely. I would tell everyone that that's what they're signing up for, right? Yeah.
So if we are hosting groups, whether either it's just we are exploring meetings and how to get to know each other, and you're going to explore with whoever that is, but then not so sexually, then it's not so complicated. Mm-hmm. Because then it's like inquiries and getting to know each other, and then it's easy to assume that you can just be with anyone. But as soon as you're also working with intimacy, people have certain expectations. So in my groups, if I have all gender, I say that this is for people who are curious to explore intimacy with people independently of gender.
So you're saying your focus is on just being really clear in what kind of space people are entering, so they can include themselves or exclude themselves.
Or exclude themselves. So if you are a person and if you're a male and you only want to interact with women, then maybe my workshop space is not the ideal for you, but then I can recommend somewhere else that you go. So then we have Johan Ekenberg, who has Sweden's biggest tantra education, and he divides male and or women and men in different exercises. And if you feel like you fit into that box, you can go to that place.
Yes. Yeah. There are some assumptions here that I want to check with you. But having met you on Planet Me, it looks like you identify also as polyamorous, or you like open relating. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, so I like one of the things that you stand for is also like everyone is queer in a way, you know.
And maybe I have to explain that a little bit for those who are listening.
Yes, go ahead.
I believe that we all have a capacity to be more fluid than most of us have brought up into being, because of gender norms in society and because of the relationships we move into. We get a bit stuck and we don't explore our full potential as human beings. And if you do spiritual practice, in most of the spiritual practices, as you move beyond this body, when you move up to your higher self, most people have the experience that it's that we are beyond gender. And this can be super heteronormative masculine guru, but when he goes to that place, he's beyond gender, and he will say that too. And then we are on this world, in this dualistic world, and the journey is to come back to the non-duality. So I find that the non-duality and the non-binary, they are like, maybe the non-binary is on the earth and the non-duality is in the spirit world. And the more we open up to our physical capacity on earth, we can be more and more queer. With that said, everybody doesn't have to do that. And if we find that, like, oh, I identify like this and I like this kind of people, and that makes you feel good, then great.
Yes.
But for whoever is curious, I think there is a capacity to open up for more queerness, if that is the word, or fluidness. And in Tantra, we work a lot with the yin and yang energy, that I like to say better than masculine and feminine, because you can be a mother in your doing for your child, mother energy, but you're in a yang energy, which is the doing. And the more we explore those inner polarities, then the more we can also start to play with that, what is man, what is woman, and move beyond. But what I want to say with this too, before I come back to your question, you said before that you don't care what people call you and you identify as a woman. And I'm the same, I'm gender fluid, but I normally go by she. I dress as a she, sometimes I dress like a he. And which means that for me and you, it's not so important, because to be called a she and be seen as a woman is perfectly fine. But if you have been put in your box your whole life, and you live in a community where when you wanted to be something different, then you were born into, that has been, you've been receiving a lot of resistance towards that, then you have to fight for your gender identity. So that's another thing that we can talk about. Oh, everybody can be queer, but we also have to recognize that there are queer people who suffer a lot of violence and even death for insisting on their identity or expression. And I think that those two polarities are really important, especially again, we were talking about bringing queer curious people into the queer community or merging them, and to respect the different journeys that people are coming from. And respect that for some people the pronoun is not important, but for someone else it's really, really important. And then you are coming to a queer inclusive space to feel fully seen and respected. And then if there's somebody there who's misgendering or not taking you seriously, then you don't feel safe.
Absolutely. And you kind of came to what I actually wanted to start talking about, the importance of boxes, basically. I just wanted to give some context on a personal level again. I have been with women, with men, falling in love with, whoever, regardless of how they identify or which body they have, from a very young age. And that wasn't for me any struggle to accept that I'm bisexual, or however I would call it. There are so many names for it now. But then there's a part of being polyamorous that took me a lot longer and a lot more challenge. And in a way, I've recently had a breakup, and my mother had this very, very sweet, caring, but also a tiny bit upsetting thing that she told me, like, I don't know why you make it so complicated for yourself. I know you would be happy in a monogamous relationship, And in a way, to me, that feels like saying to a gay person, wouldn't it be way simpler to be heterosexual? That's how it feels to me. If it's really like an identity that I've also been, in a way, fighting for myself to take on, to stand for, to be okay with, mainly with myself. And I noticed that I'm more and more ready to also let go of that, if that would change. And I'm just curious if you have some personal story there, or some part that was a little bit more challenging for you to take on, or that there was some fighting for.
Those are two very different questions. So let me start with similar.
Okay.
Let's keep to the topic of polyamory.
Yeah.
When my brother came out to my parents and said that he was polyamorous, he was pretty much, it would have been easier if he had said that he was gay than that he was polyamorous.
Exactly.
And my dad said also, like, oh, it will pass, that kind of thing. And my dad and my brother were like really upset and like left the room, and I guess I didn't have to have the talk because he had it before, and they kind of just read between the lines and I was relating to people. But I think it's been really important for me as well to identify as polyamorous. And when I say identify as polyamorous, for me, it means that I have the capacity to love many people, and I also have the capacity to be physically intimate with several people, or in relationships at the same time. And when we open up to that from a healthy place, then it just feels supernatural, as if anything else would be unnatural. Because when you are in the present moment with one person, then if you're fully there and you love them, you love them. And then that's not exclusive if you are super present with another person. It's like you have many children. And the love towards one doesn't exclude the other. So I don't think that will ever move out of my system. I think this fluidity is more about expanding than going back to restriction. So say that you identify as gay and people like, oh, but you have trauma with women and maybe you should like, see if you can be with a woman. And I know some men who identified as gay, and then when they're like 30, suddenly they meet one woman and they like fall in love. But then after that particular person, doesn't mean they don't want to be with men again. Mm-hmm. Like you change box to the other. Like if you have the capacity to love all, you're not going to shut doors again. I think we're going to stay open. But what I do see is that it's more about what kind of open relating do you want to have. So I think that I could have a monogamous relationship maybe in the future, but it wouldn't look like a monogamous relationship to traditionally monogamous people. But in comparison to fully open, where you can do anything with everyone, it could probably be more like, I don't feel like having sex with anyone else. Mm-hmm. Not because I'm not allowed to, but because me and this person, we just feel so connected that suddenly my necessity to be with other people might diminish. And also it might be that I want to be physical. So it is still a bit open in relation to what other people might think. So because I'm a sensual being. Mm-hmm. So I'm never going to stop that extrovertedness of my sensuality. I don't think I will ever shut that in. And that is already too much openness for some people.
Yes.
The way I look at people, the way I touch people, the way I can just lie and cuddle with people, that I can be in a play party and give a sensual massage to someone I've never met. I will always have that. But already for me, moving out of relationship, because it has become a way of just being among people, mm-hmm. which is more open than most people are.
I resonate a lot with that. Yes. And in a way, that example of the gay person and then falling in love in a hetero way and still have it, for me, it comes down to feeling the choice. So once we feel okay with who we are and our sexual orientation, we can still choose to then, intentionally limit ourselves because it feels worth it for us, or because that feels most important for us at that time, for whatever reason. It doesn't take away the capacity to love and the capacity to be close to others in a physical way.
And I think now I feel like triggering you just for fun. Maybe your mother also has a point. And when I say that, do you get triggered?
No, actually not. I'm very curious what you're going to say.
But in a different way. So I don't think it's like a phase that will move through and suddenly we want to go back to a traditional monogamous relationship. But it might be a phase where we want to have this full openness, where I want to be at festivals and I want to play and I want to go to play parties and I want to explore. I think that we don't have that energy for the rest of our life. It's going to move into phases. And then when we move out of that like super extrovert phase, then we might long for one secure person to relax and do other things. And maybe to be with so many people is not so important. But then it comes from a place of necessity, not of limitation of the other person. Then it becomes like, oh, you and me want the same thing now. We want to chill in the forest and then just go and traveling, the two of us, and do something. And so I think that can change.
Absolutely.
And then we might be ready to meet another kind of partner when we are in that phase. Mm-hmm. Then when we are in the phase of, oh, I just want to explore myself in many different ways.
Mm-hmm. And I think when I mentioned that I'm more and more ready to let go of that identity, mm-hmm. It's not, like we just mentioned, it's not the capacity to, like, I think I'm always going to be polyamorous, but it's feeling indeed that shift of, wow, once it felt great to just have all the freedom that I want. And now actually I would love to be in those spaces, sex positive spaces, and I love to have this sense of I have a partnership and I'm taking that into account, and there's someone there, a home that I have with someone. So I feel a little bit this feels a little bit vulnerable and sensitive talking about, just because of the breakup. Feels like a very alive topic for me, and the belief that, you know, I can have the freedom that I really long for in a relationship, and it doesn't need to be all the freedom. There's just a need for a certain amount, and still have the kind of partnership and family that I'm longing for too.
I haven't fixed that yet either, so back to you.
You didn't have a magic tip there?
I've always said, like, you should only teach what you are congruent with, what you already have experience with. So I teach attachment and attracting better partners, but I don't teach long-term relationships.
Yeah.
Because I'm not in one. But I think the attachment part here is really essential, because what you said is this longing of freedom and at the same time longing for the security. And whether we are open to be polyamorous or not can be very connected to our attachment. And I think only when we have developed a secure attachment can we have a secure relationship. And then that can be monogamous or polyamorous. But as long as we are in a place where we need a lot of connection and feel lonely easily, and we have an anxious attachment, then it's going to be super challenging to be in an open relationship. And if you're avoidant, so which means that maybe you didn't get enough freedom when you were a child, or your mother were holding on to you a little bit too much, or your needs were not met, so you solved it by just taking care of yourself, and then it's easier to not attach yourself and just have a few lovers and no one needs anything from you. With that said, there are some people who say that polyamorous is just a way of being avoidant in relationships. And for some people, yes, but polyamory in its true essence definitely is not for me. But I think it's honest, or it's important to be honest with oneself and see how these patterns affect us as we move into relationships.
Definitely. And I love how you also mentioned that all these patterns, they can come up in any kind of relationship. Like whether like a monogamous relationship can come from trauma, and an open relationship as well. And yeah. And both can be healthy. Yes. So there's one other topic that I would love to talk with you about, which is we both work in the field of intimacy and sexuality and pleasure, embodiment. And so it's in a way obvious that that's a part of our work, because it's, you know, it's a topic. But beyond that, I'm super curious to talk about how you integrate pleasure and embodiment in how you work, how it's integrated in having a business and navigating that for yourself. Curious if you have some favorite practices or tools to do that task that you feel very resistant to, or...
Let me see where I start. I'm part of a business coaching program at the moment, and the question that I asked them today was, do you have any tips for not losing your work duties during the summer? Because some people, they work really hard and they have a difficulty of letting go, so they overwork and burn out and they don't find time for pleasure. While I'm a pleasure coach, so I'm really good at that, and I'm better at not working. There's a bigger risk that I put my business aside and don't earn money than that I will overwork myself. Which wasn't true in the past, because I have had burnouts in short periods as well, when I went into a project that I really burned for, and then I went into that place as well. But what I would like to say now, the balance is definitely for me to make sure that I am feeling good in myself. And one of the biggest practices has actually been generally slowing down. Mm-hmm. And living in Mozambique also brought this rhythm into life and slowness of seeing people into a daily living. Mm-hmm. Here you can go on a retreat and you're all conscious and eye contact, and then you go back to daily life and you're just rushing over. So you're not actually changing who you are, you're just changing it for the weekend, and then you're going back to who you were before. So living in Mozambique made me having to slow down, because I was the only rat like running around, and they're looking at me, it's like, why are you so crazy? You know, mm-hmm. Like, what are you doing 3 things in one day? Like, chill. This is not good for you. It's like, what? So for me, it's been to adapt a bit of that lifestyle into my Swedish lifestyle, which means finding ways of enjoying walking, of cleaning, of daily chores, breathing. Like when I think of myself, I'm just going to rush to the toilet. And then I'm like, I'm not going to rush to the toilet. I'm going to walk to the toilet, and then I'm going to consciously pee. I think those mini micro moments of slowing down really shifts our baseline, because I think a lot of people, they have a very high stress level as a baseline. Mm-hmm. And then they meditate or do yoga where they relax and then go straight up. But then to have a healthy living, we need to shift so that our baseline is that slower pace. And then from that slower pace, then organization has been challenging for me, because I like to go more with the flow. But to have a structure of running a business, of having an assistant where we have working hours and we set up the schedule for the week, what are the emails that need to be sent, what are the posts that I need to put on Facebook, and getting more structure and organization and having somebody to work with me. Mm. If I don't do it, it's kind of like, hey, now it's time to do that thing. And do things much earlier in time, open up courses and things much earlier. Mm-hmm. So these are things that I've been like for the last 3-4 years, like every year it's been a little bit better. Well, in the beginning, I just didn't do anything through the whole summer. And then August came, and then I hadn't booked anything. And then I got a lot of anxiety, and then I couldn't get anything done. And I got stressed, and then I didn't put anything up. And then like, oh shit, but I should put something up. And then I put it up like 2 weeks before. And then I get super stressed about super marketing, bad strategies, you know.
Yeah.
I get tired of talking about it.
Yeah.
So what my business program right now is really supporting with, it's called DTL, it's a Swedish in Stockholm, or no, in Sweden, is that being a coach is about being in relationship with people. And if I move away from, I have to market myself, and I go back to the core, why do I do what I do? Because I want to be in relationship with people. Yeah. Which means that I post about things that I think is important in my life, and then hopefully will support people. And then when people comment or ask things, then I want to get to know them, and I know, why is this important? And obviously eventually this will lead to people buying into my courses, but it's really a shift on the inside to dealing. I'm running a business, but I am in relationship with every person at all times. Mm-hmm. And it's from that relationship that people want to work with me, and I want to work with people that I'm in a relationship with. It's because you can't coach people who feel like they've been pushed into something, right? Mm-hmm. And people, it's a mutual exchange. You want to be supported, and I'm here to give the support, and it's a match in between two people. Mm-hmm. So putting down the pressure and get more structure, and then focus on each little relationship. The way I speak to people when I'm in a festival, or if I chat with someone, or if I'm writing someone, everybody are people that I care about.
Yeah, and I think what you mentioned, just the baseline of this, the stress, lowering down that it's, and too high stress is an antidote for the relationship and for the business and for your pleasure level and
Totally
feeling alive. So
you're gonna feel it, that you're stressed or you're worrying about money, or you know, and it transmits. So it's really about being who I want to be first. Otherwise I can't transmit anything. So it also comes down to constantly continuing to do courses or therapy for myself, so that I'm constantly updated to the latest version of myself. So it's a combination.
Yeah. So as we're wrapping up this call, how can people find your amazing work?
Well, you can find me on Facebook or Instagram, Li Tadaa. I call myself Lust Coach on Instagram. You can also find me on litada.com. And then you can read more about my courses and retreats. And I work in Stockholm with women and do a women's retreat. It says women with an X, and women with an X means that you can be identified female at birth or have the experience of being a woman, but maybe you don't identify as a woman at the moment, but you want to be in that kind of space. But again, it's people think, well, if you're queer, why do you do a women's space, right? And when we are in that space, then we are exploring our full capacity beyond the gender. But what happens when we are only female bodies in the space, or people who identify as women in the space, is that people dare to take down their walls more. And I wish it wasn't like that, so that we could just mix all the time. But certain things need separatistic spaces for healing before we can move out in the more mixed. So I do, combine these different aspects. And you can also have a call with me. I offer a free call of 30 minutes if there's something that you want to explore, or write to me. Yeah.
I adore how you talk about all of this, and I feel really inspired, and I'm sure a lot of other people who listen to this as well. Thank you so much.
I can say that I really appreciated this conversation, and I think these topics are really, really important. And I think people know when they're ready to go deeper. And I think these platforms are needed where this is an option. When people come to work with me, some people come only for the pleasure part, or they just want to, get a bit of better sex life. And then when I press the button of the wounds or the behaviors, then they don't want to see it. And then maybe they're not ready, and that's okay. So I think being honest and open and straight what we're doing, we will attract people who are ready. So if you're listening and feel what you call träffad, and you feel hit by what we share here, I hope that you see that as an opening to go deeper, whether you do that with, but if you go elsewhere, follow that impulse going deeper.
Yeah, and I also had a one-on-one intro call with you, and on itself, it's just a pleasure to meet Li and get a sense of whether you're ready or not to go deeper. So thank you for those ending words.